Recently, the video of digging up the time capsule went viral. Among them is a note written by top singer Ted Petty when he was 18 years old. 28-year-old Ted Petty, are you married to her? Everyone thought that the creator was deliberately gaining popularity, but I didn't expect Ted Petty to respond. Not yet. Ted Petty, as a top performer in the circle, has debuted for many years without scandals, but has created many popular love songs. It is rumored that Ted Petty has always had a secret girlfriend. Looking at it now, it turns out that the top singer Ted Petty will also have a crush. The hot search directly exploded several. Even the high school class group chat, which doesn't talk much, started 99+. There are quite a few people among them, and I am. Maxine, Ted Petty's crush won't be you, will you? To Maud Noel. Poppy, isn't the big star at odds with our cold squad leader? I think Ted Petty has a crush on our class flower. Dana, I was optimistic about Ted Petty and Quintina in high school, and now both of them are in the entertainment industry, a popular actress and a top singer. Is it a good match at first glance? Maxine, I still think Ted Petty has a crush on our class president. After all, Maud Noel is his high school tablemate. Class president, you can say something. To Maud Noel. I glanced at the messages in the group and pinched my sore cervical spine. I took a deep breath and felt bitter in my heart. It's not me. How could someone like Ted Petty like me? I silently moved to the background of the chat. The picture is a little blurry. It's a picture of me and Ted Petty that I took from the class photo. The sun was shining that day, and I'm glad I was in the science class. There are not many girls, and because of my height, I was successfully assigned to Ted Petty. While taking pictures, the girl next to me accidentally bumped into me, and I screamed in pain. It just so happened that Ted Petty took a look. The unknown crush also stumbled upon a glimpse of the skylight. That was the only photo I had with Ted Petty. Soon, the gossip in the class group ended. Netizens have gone online with Sherlock Holmes, picking up many of the same models of Quintina and Ted Petty, as well as photos of Ted Petty performing at the school celebration and Quintina delivering flowers. The two in the photo are talented and beautiful, not to mention how well matched. The CP fans of the two began to grow exponentially, and it seemed that good things were near. No one ever mentions whether Ted Petty's crush is me or not. After all, no one thinks that the first love of a top singer is an ordinary person. Even I think so. It's always a bit hot and humid in the city. Under the camphor tree, I can't help but remember the wanton and arrogant appearance of the boy in the white shirt riding a mountain bike. In fact, there are more than just Ted Petty's cards in the time capsule. And mine. The crumpled paper was scribbled and altered, and in the end only one sentence remained. Did you go to his concert? It's just that this video didn't go as popular as Ted Petty's video. Probably because there is no name. Maybe there are too many people in him. After all, in that era, there were too many highly representative singers. It's just a pity that my answer is the same as Ted Petty's. Not yet. Ted Petty has concerts every year, and at the beginning, he wasn't very popular, and concert tickets were not hard to grab. Unfortunately, my job is special, and I often can't find anyone for months or even years. This also led to Ted Petty's debut for 10 years, but I never went to his concert once. This year marks the 10th anniversary of Ted Petty's debut, and I don't want to miss it again. What's more, the venue of the concert is in Lincheng. It is the place where dreams begin. Unfortunately, no matter how many scalpers I searched, I couldn't get tickets for Ted Petty's concert. Maybe I'd already spent all my luck when I met him. I could only decide to attend a Ted Petty concert outside the stadium to end my youth. At this time, the ringtone of the message that the mobile phone Facebook is particularly concerned about suddenly rings. I was stunned at first, thinking that I must have been too tired these days to hallucinate. It's not a New Year's holiday. How can you get a message from Ted Petty? In the next second, the special concern news bell rang again. I realized that it might be true. My hands were shaking when I pulled out my phone, and my already sweaty fingers couldn't open the fingerprint lock. Pattern unlocking also failed several times due to nervousness. At the end of the day, I had to waiting for the time when I could pick the lock again. At that moment, I just felt like my heart was beating too fast, like a restless virus. It wasn't until the countdown reached 0 that I carefully unlocked it. Take a deep breath and click on Facebook. Maud Noel, I'm going to have a concert. I want to invite the whole class to my concert. I took a deep breath and controlled my hands, which were shaking with excitement. The text in the chat box was deleted, and typed and deleted. In the end, there was only one word left for good. I couldn't resist looking through my chat with Ted Petty. There are only blessing text messages that seem to be sent in groups during the New Year's holidays. It seems that only during the holidays can I have a reason to talk to Ted Petty. I posted the news that Ted Petty was inviting everyone to the concert in the group. The group exploded instantly, everyone was very happy, and even joked that there would be a class reunion after the concert and they would take a photo with Ted Petty and sign autographs. I just thought it was a joke. After all, Ted Petty is no longer my not-so-math tablemate, but a sparkling star on stage. There is a difference between us, a chasm that cannot be bridged. He was still as bright as the moon, but I was still bleak. The moon that you can see when you look up is actually 108,000 miles away. It's just that I didn't expect Ted Petty, who has been diving, to reply to the group message. Okay, it's all up to the squad leader. When I saw those words, I was stunned at first, thinking that it was not a prank by a classmate. Hurriedly clicked on the person's avatar and saw a special note. My breath stagnated, my face instantly turned red, and the corners of my mouth couldn't help but smirk. This sentence slowly corresponds to the teenager in my memory. My intersection with Ted Petty probably started when the teacher transferred him to my table mate and became my helper. At that time, I knew that there was still this person in the class, a strange person who could only get a fraction of me in mathematics. The strangest thing is that this person has a kind of optimism that does not care about people's lives and deaths, which makes me particularly envious. I was recognized as a well-behaved child in the class, and the teacher handed over Ted Petty to me, so I naturally couldn't live up to the teacher's trust. Ted Petty ran out of the classroom as soon as class was out of class, and I couldn't find him once. I can only stop him after school and ask him to show me the math paper, and talk to him about today's knowledge points. Ted Petty would always stop walking out and shrug helplessly, it's all up to the class leader. Later, something happened to my family. Ted Petty, who didn't know where to get the news, knew I was short of money and asked me to be his tutor, the hourly kind. At that time I couldn't say no, and I didn't have a reason to say no. I needed that money. I looked down at the bank card in my wallet. I had saved a lot of money over the years, and I had already saved enough for the tutoring fee that Ted Petty had paid me in the first place. But I never got a chance to give it back. Or rather, I don't really want to give it back to him so quickly. After returning it to him, we never crossed paths again. It was really two parallel lines. Even if we've ever intersected, we've missed it quickly. It's like a thought, a love that can never be spoken. But now, with Ted Petty and Quintina on the horizon, my love for him should end there, and return to the idol worship of my fans. We'll never have a second possibility. We should all learn to accept that those who like them don't like themselves. The venue of the concert is in Lincheng. Lincheng is Ted Petty's hometown and Quintina's hometown. Fans say that Ted Petty will confess to Quintina at the concert. I am also a strong believer in this. Aren't we the testimonies that Ted Petty has invited to testify? Ted Petty is a romantic guy, I've always known that. When I was in high school, I was so envious of Quintina that she could boldly reveal her liking. I took a deep breath and stood outside the gymnasium waiting for my classmates, but I couldn't help but look at the fans, who were carrying small banzai around me. The 10th anniversary means a lot to Ted Petty, and to Ted Petty's fans. I really envy Quintina, one might even say jealous. A staff member looked at me, on my phone and walked over to me. Hello Maud Noel, I'm a member of Ted Petty's staff. Ted Petty told me to take you in. I looked left and right, the students haven't come yet. They're in. I followed the staff into the gymnasium. I didn't expect Ted Petty to be so lavish and the entire VIP seat filled up with my class. Quintina sat in the middle of the crowd, clearly dressed, and eye-catching, with a warm bouquet of red roses in her arms. I've always known that Ted Petty invited us to be a witness or to cover for Quintina. Just like after graduating from high school, Ted Petty gave all of us girls a doll for a gift. The lights dimmed. The lights are focused in the center of the stage. Ted Petty lifted up from the lift platform with his guitar in his arms. Fingers plucked the guitar with a crisp sound. You're on the left, I'm on the right. The first photo, not too daring to be intimate, for both of us. 10 years ago, Ted Petty sang a cover of The Two of Us at the school celebration. At that time, I lost a bet with Ted Petty, and the big venture he gave me was to stuff me with a bouquet of flowers and ask me to come on stage to lay flowers after he finished singing. That day, I wore a dress. Actually, I rarely wear skirts. I don't think it's troublesome, and I think skirts are expensive and impractical. But that day, I wanted to give myself a chance to get closer to the moon. But I didn't expect an accident. Halfway through the song, the head teacher came to me. I didn't care about the big adventure, so I threw the flower on the chair and ran out with the head teacher. A few days later, I found out that it was Quintina who gave me the flowers in the end. The first photo of the two men that went viral on the internet was recorded in that situation. It's all providential. Maybe Ted Petty and I really lack some fate. I've been hiding in my heart for a long time. The softest corner. There was a small sobbing sound in the gymnasium. This decade is not just a decade for Ted Petty, but also for fans. It's my 12th year. This time I finally finished listening to the whole song. There's no denying that Ted Petty on stage has a very aggressive appeal. If I had watched that show, I would have never forgotten it. Ted Petty is the only wave in my quiet life. It is the moon that I dare not forget and cannot forget when I am young. That unspeakable liking is hidden in the screams of all the fans. Ted Petty, I like you. It's not the fans' love for their idols, it's the love I like for Ted Petty. It is a favorite that spans the entire youth and is 12 years late. Ted Petty, I like you. Tears flowed unconsciously. I know better than anyone else. That's it, stop liking Ted Petty. At the same time, Quintina, who was beside her, straightened her long hair and took the stage holding a hot red rose. The atmosphere of the venue instantly became hot. At Ted Petty's age, fans hope that he can find someone to be with him for the rest of his life. Quintina is the most suitable person. They are high school classmates and they have grown together. It's just that my peripheral vision is uncontrollably glancing over. I watched as Quintina and Ted Petty appeared in the same frame. No wonder they all say that they are a good match, and they are indeed a good match. The existence of God-given good fate. Tears blurred my vision, and I subconsciously raised my hand. The wind was so strong. Just then, the phone rang. The special ringtone made me connect the phone like a stress response. Maud Noel. The virus has mutated. My expression froze, and I couldn't bother to see the happy ending of Ted Petty and Quintina's love story. It dawned on me that even now, Ted Petty and I were missing a little bit of fate. I handed the card to Maxine, asked her to give it to Ted Petty, and hurried out. There were no performance accidents on the stage. My 12-year crush came to an end in this chaos. From now on, I'll just be a Ted Petty fan. Perhaps Ted Petty never knew that there was a person who loved him very much. I changed into a hazmat suit and went into the lab. The lab was already full of people. The P4 laboratory is a top research institute in the country, dedicated to basic research on virulent infectious diseases. I've spent my life trying to solve the problem of virus research. Do it knowing that it can't be done, because the only person in this world who loves me has died at the hands of the virus. I don't want there to be too many kids like me in this world, so I'm willing to dedicate my life to virus research. It was about 3 or 4 days before I came out of the lab. The phone is out of battery and turned off. I don't really care much, because the people who used to think about me are no longer in this world, and there will be no more people in this world who think about me. Instead, the colleague next to him excitedly talked to his friend on the phone. I knew Ted Petty wasn't going to like Quintina. The originally chaotic mind came to its senses when it heard the words, Ted Petty. It seems that the word, Ted Petty, is my switch at all times. When I was in high school, I would subconsciously look back when I heard the word, Ted Petty, and subconsciously look for the figure in the crowd. And now, too, slow down and keep listening. She also wants to tie up CP with Ted Petty at the concert. You know, we Ted Petty don't eat this at all. I'm going to die laughing. Quintina should be the first female celebrity to be caught by the security guards. Right, you deserve it. You didn't read my Ted Petty tweet. It's crazy. The person Ted Petty likes is not Quintina. At that moment, my heart exploded like fireworks, and I couldn't help but hook the corners of my lips. It's not authentic, but I don't know why. I'm just happy. I don't know what I'm happy about. Ted Petty doesn't like Quintina. But he doesn't like me either. Then you say, who is the one Ted Petty likes? Could it be me? As soon as this question popped up, I rejected it. How can shrimp in the river live with shrimp in the sea? Ted Petty deserves a star-studded life, not being pulled down from the altar by someone like me. So I'm sorry for Ted Petty's 10 years of hard work. He shouldn't be bothered by people like me, although I think that in my heart, I always have some expectations, and I expect that person to be me. I took a random bus and got off at the nearest platform, just to find a power bank. As I sat at the convenience store and turned on the machine nervously, I didn't dare to look forward to it, because what I expect will backfire, and it won't end well. As soon as the mobile phone was turned on, a lot of messages popped up immediately, and there were more than 20 missed calls. I ignored everything and set my eyes on the Facebook contacts at the top. The message was 4 days ago. Maud Noel, why are you gone again? You didn't finish it 10 years ago, and you still haven't finished it 10 years later. Maud Noel, we can't be at odds, right? Half an hour passed. I was too impulsive just now. I didn't mean that. I didn't blame you. I just wanted to ask, where have you been? A day later. Maud Noel, don't scare me. Don't reply to my messages. Where have you been? Something is wrong with Maud Noel. A dozen more phone calls followed. The rest of the story. Before I could finish it, the call came in. It's a string of numbers, with no notes, but I still know that it was Ted Petty's call. When the homeroom teacher asked me to organize the class information, I secretly memorized it, and that was the first time I was glad that my memory was so good. I'm afraid that people will find out about this unknown like, so I don't dare to put this string of mobile phone numbers into my mobile phone address book. I took a deep breath and coughed again, and it wasn't until my voice returned to normal that I was on Ted Petty's phone. The other side first breathed a sigh of relief, and then the voice was obviously a little angry. Maud Noel, you finally answered my call. If I hadn't known you were a researcher, I'd have called the police. The sound of falling asleep with me every night suddenly appeared in my ears. Everything was like a dream, and I subconsciously pinched my thigh. I'm afraid everything is a dream for me. It hurts. It's true. I'm sorry. I'm sorry 10 years ago, and I'm sorry 10 years later. The voice on the other side slowed down a little helpless. Maud Noel, didn't you say okay? Don't you have to say sorry to me? Actually, I'm not a good girl. I'm more rebellious than anyone else. But for the sake of my grandmother, I am willing to become a good girl, to become a sensible good granddaughter. My parents left in a car accident a year after I was born. I became a scourge in the mouths of my relatives, and they avoided me. No one wants to raise me except my grandmother. That little old lady is also strong, and she relied on that little pension and the money from selling scrap to pull me to the end. Although the life is poor, it is very happy. It may be that I have suffered since I was a child, which has caused some flaws in my personality. I always blame myself for all my mistakes. I would subconsciously apologize. The first time was when the homeroom teacher asked me to go to the playground to find Ted Petty. The basketball didn't last long and hit me on the head. I was thrown to the ground. That was my first physical contact with Ted Petty. Ted Petty carried me to the infirmary. I was groggy at the time, and I just thought Ted Petty had a nice smell of laundry detergent, sweet like toast. Maud Noel, don't sleep, don't sleep. At that time, his voice was still in the stage of changing voices, but it was also very good. Maud Noel, don't sleep. You can talk to me. You can't call me by name. At that time, I didn't like Ted Petty. I just thought that this person was a headache for me. To shut him up, I called him by name. Ted Petty, Ted Petty, Ted Petty. At that time, I didn't know it, but later I would try to practice saying the name, and put a smile on my face at the last word. Would unconsciously write his name on scratch paper that he couldn't think of an answer to. By the time I reacted, he had already taken up most of my youth. Ted Petty put me in a hospital bed. The way he came made him sweat a lot. I felt a little guilty that Ted Petty had carried me for such a long time, and I was still complaining about him in my heart. And Ted Petty seems to have a game, and he seems to have been looking forward to it for a long time. Ted Petty, I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry for delaying your game. Thank you for sending me here. I held back the pain in my head, and tried to squeeze out a smile. If you have something to do, Go first. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Ted Petty hooked his lips with a bit of arrogance. Maud Noel, in your heart, I, Ted Petty, am such an unrighteous person? I quickly waved my hand. That's not what I meant. But because the swing amplitude was a little large, his head instantly hurt, and his face turned white. Suddenly, Ted Petty smiled. Doctor, at that time, I wanted to say that it was not so troublesome, but I found it a little uncomfortable to open my mouth and speak. The doctor in the infirmary couldn't give an accurate assessment and suggested that I go to the hospital for a film. I subconsciously wanted to refuse. It should cost a lot of money to make a film. Right. Ted Petty squatted down. Shoot. Have to shoot. Maud Noel, come up. I'll carry you to the hospital. Don't be so troublesome. It's just a little dizzy. I'll just sleep for a while. Ted Petty's brow furrowed. A little fierce. Maud Noel, I smashed the ball. Do you want my brothers to know that I, Ted Petty, didn't take responsibility? I didn't mean that. Come up. I still didn't move. I always felt that the money could be saved. Maud Noel, if you don't come up yet, I'll have to find the head teacher and tell your parents. I looked at Ted Petty as he walked out and immediately stopped him. Don't. My grandmother is old, and I don't want her to worry about me. I'll just go with you. Ted Petty carried me on his back through the camphor trees on campus. At that time, Ted Petty was already a popular figure in the school, attracting a lot of attention. But Ted Petty didn't care. My face turned red. Ted Petty, you let me down. I can go on my own. Ted Petty's chuckle came over his ears. Turns out Maud Noel is shy. I don't know where he got the cap out of nowhere, and it was over my head, and the brim of the hat was pressed down, blocking all curious glances. At that moment, I heard the voice of my heartbeat. Ted Petty accompanied me to shoot and wait for the results. During this time, I repeatedly persuaded Ted Petty to go back to school and not to be here with me. It's just one game. Am I Ted Petty still? One game away. I know in my heart what Ted Petty has done for this fight, and he looks forward to it more than anyone else. We will be juniors in high school next year, and there will be no more basketball games. And this will probably be the last basketball game at Ted Petty High School. I hung my head and whispered, I'm sorry. June leaned in suddenly. Maud Noel, you've said, I'm sorry, a lot today. I did this wrong, and I was the one who should say, I'm sorry. Maud Noel, what are you sorry for? Ted Petty, how much money was spent? I'll give you the money tomorrow. Ted Petty's face flashed with confusion, and he grabbed me by the shoulders and forced me to look at him. Maud Noel, I smashed you. I should pay for this money. You don't have to feel burdened. But, Maud Noel, me again. I'll never listen to you lecture me again. The threat of teenagers is always clumsy, and I can't help but laugh. Ted Petty is probably a ray of light from my dark world. Right. The second time, I mistakenly ate the breakfast that Ted Petty's little fangirl gave him. The night before, my classmate in the class next door said she was going to bring me the breakfast she had made. Who knew she had forgotten about it? It just so happened that I had a breakfast on my table, packed in a pink and tender insulated box. The contents are also very cute, but they are not very delicious. I had just finished eating, and was about to clean the insulated box and return it to my classmates when I ran into Quintina, who had just come in from outside. Why is this in your hands? This is what I gave to Ted Petty. Maud Noel, you're that poor. I eat everything, and I'm not afraid of diarrhea. At that moment, I was a little embarrassed. It's just a breakfast. Just eat it. It's a big deal. I'll pay you a share. The lazy voice is particularly secure at this moment. Ted Petty walked through the crowd towards me. The crowd was so crowded, and in that moment, everyone was blurred, and all I could see was Ted Petty. Ted Petty grabbed my hand. Maud Noel, aren't you going to give me a lecture? Sitting back in my seat, I whispered to Ted Petty, I'm sorry. Thank you. Ted Petty smiled instantly. A little helpless. Maud Noel, I thought we were friends. Why are you so polite? I waved my hand in a panic. I didn't mean that. Ted Petty smiled and continued. Maud Noel, ask yourself if you did anything wrong before you apologize in the future. What did you do wrong? Something was originally misplaced by Quintina. Besides, even if it's your fault, just compensate her. What are you afraid of? If you're afraid that she will bully you, tell me. and I'll support you. I looked at Ted Petty and said, word for word, Ted Petty, we're friends. Ted Petty's smile was even bigger, and I obviously didn't expect my brain circuitry to be so special. So Maud Noel has such a cute side, too. Alright, Maud Noel, you remember, you don't need to say, sorry, and, thank you, between friends. You don't have to say, sorry, and, thank you, to me in the future. Remember? At that moment, I was sure I fell in love with Ted Petty. Unavoidable likes. Maud Noel, why are you in a daze again? A helpless voice sounded. Memories are also pulled back to reality. I subconsciously muttered his name. Ted Petty. I didn't notice the corners of my lips when I was at the last word. I'm here, Maud Noel. Should you explain that bank card to me? Maud Noel, aren't we friends? It's so clear. The word friend extinguishes the expectation that has popped up in my heart. It's like a reminder to me that Ted Petty and I are friends and can only be friends. I shouldn't have those expectations. Being able to be friends with top performers is already a luxury for many people, and people like me shouldn't expect anything else. Thank you, Ted Petty. I've inquired, and you've given you a lot of tutoring fees. I am grateful for the help you gave me back then, and I only took what I was supposed to take. Ted Petty sighed. Maud Noel, if you want to pay it back, you will pay it back to me yourself. Okay, I made an appointment with Ted Petty. Actually, I really want to see him one last time, and say goodbye to him. Say goodbye to my youth. Give him back to the sea again. In this way, I should have no regrets. Hang up. I clicked on Weibo. 4 days later, the hot search has also changed. I clicked directly on Ted Petty's Weibo. The latest is a retweet on Weibo. The content forwarded is sent by the marketing account. The marketing account speculated that the song, The Two of Us, was sung by Ted Petty to Quintina, pictured with a photo of Quintina and Ted Petty on their school anniversary. Ted Petty's simple words, "Don't get involved." A push popped up at the top of the phone screen. About 3 days ago, it was an interview with Ted Petty's concert security guard after sending Quintina off the Typhoon. The reporter asked Ted Petty about the stupid things he had done recently. Obviously, I wanted to ask about it. Ted Petty's agent refused to answer the question on the spot, but Ted Petty took the microphone. Ted Petty's gaze is on the camera, and there is a bit of seriousness in his eyes. When I was 18 years old, I did something stupid and gave a gift to the whole class, in order to give a gift to a certain girl. At the age of 28, I invited the whole class to invite a girl to my concert. The reporter's eyes lit up instantly, and he asked Ted Petty if it was written on the note. Ted Petty nodded, his eyes seeming to break through the camera and into my eyes. The love in his eyes, that was so turbulent that it was impossible to hide. He said earnestly, word by word, "It's always been her." I was shocked, and a thought that seemed like a fantasy came to me. Ted Petty's crush for the past decade has always been me. It's just that in the next second, I immediately vetoed it. I'm really whimsical. Life is going so smoothly that I dare to have some sweet dreams. Maxine and I met up at a nearby cafe. Maud Noel. Here, I sat across from Maxine, who kept looking at me before he spoke. Maud Noel. Ted Petty's crush has always been you. The coffee I swallowed was almost vomited in fright. Maxine, don't make these jokes. Ted Petty is a public figure, and he doesn't have a good influence. Maxine sighed. Maud Noel, I really don't understand. Why can't people who like each other be together? I hung my head and didn't answer Maxine's words. Meeting Ted Petty has taken all my luck. I didn't dare to confess, and I was afraid that I would be a stalker girl in Ted Petty's memories. On top of that, nothing ends well with anyone close to me. Ted Petty has worked hard for 10 years, and he finally stood at the top of the class, and he didn't deserve such an ending. I'm sorry for you that day. I digressed the subject. It just so happened that a song sounded in the cafe. Maxine handed me back, Maud Noel. In fact, you are better than anyone else, more radiant than anyone else. You don't know how much I envied you in high school, a genius girl who can get a perfect score in math. At that time many people actually wanted to be friends with you, but you didn't give us a chance. Maud Noel, you missed 10 years. Why don't you be bold? You're better suited to stand by Ted Petty's side than anyone else. And I don't even think Ted Petty is worthy of our big scientist. Maud Noel, live for yourself. I want you to be happy. Maxine said that and left, leaving me alone in the cafe. I looked out the window at the building, and there were Ted Petty ads everywhere. Ted Petty has taken over my entire life before I know it. I don't know why, but I suddenly remembered my grandmother. 10 years ago, my head teacher told me to leave because my grandmother had been given a critical illness notice. I'm going to see my grandmother for the last time. I put on my protective suit and went in, and I saw the thin little old lady on the hospital bed. The little old lady looked at me, with a smile on her face. My Maud Noel looks so good in a dress. Maud Noel, after Grandma is gone, you must live well. Grandma will protect you in heaven. Maud Noel, you have to remember that you are no worse than anyone else, not even better than anyone else. Maud Noel, Grandma has been burdening you all these years. You should belong to the broader blue sky. Grandma knows that your dream is to become a mathematician. Grandma coughed violently. I hurried over to hold my grandmother's hand, and pursed my lips for fear that tears would fall. Grandma, don't you go. Okay. The crumpled hand trembled and lifted up, forcing the corners of my mouth to laugh with his fingers. Our Maud Noel looks so good, when he smiles. Grandma will protect us. Maud Noel from heaven. Maud Noel, do what you want. Grandma will always support you. Grandma, grandmother, doctor. There was a panic in the ward, and it was as if I had lost the whole world in that instant. The person who loved me the most in the world died that summer. I raised my hand to wipe the tears from the corners of my eyes and whispered, Grandma, can a person like me really get love? When he was 1 year old, his parents died in a car accident. When I was 18 years old, my grandmother contracted the virus. I will be able to support the little old lady, and bring her a good life. She was too bitter in her life, and before she had time to enjoy happiness, maybe what my relatives said is right. I am a disaster, and whoever comes close to me will be unlucky. The next time I saw Ted Petty, it was in the recording studio. Ted Petty sings in the studio. I sat outside and listened in silence. He really has a good idea to achieve his dream. However, my dream of being a mathematician was replaced by the lights of thousands of homes. A shadow appeared above my head, and I subconsciously looked up and happened to meet Ted Petty's eyes. I panicked and withdrew my gaze, for fear of being caught by him. My liking for him. Ted Petty, I'm here to pay it back. Ted Petty put his hands in his pockets and chuckled. Maud Noel, I'll take you somewhere. I repeated. Ted Petty, I'm here to pay it back. Go, I'll take it. It's still so nave, and you can't find a good way to threaten people, but that's what I still eat. Little did I know that Ted Petty would take me back to school. At that time, he was already the pride of Lincheng No. 1 Middle School. Naturally, the security guard knew him, and I didn't expect him to know me too. You're Maud Noel, aren't you? My daughter likes you very much, and they all look up to you as a role model. Can you write something to my daughter so that she can study math well? Maud Noel, you have a lot of fans. Sour words, but I know Ted Petty didn't mean that. I wrote a text to the security guard, and handed him the paper back. Please tell my little sister, don't chase me, I'm not worth it. Ted Petty's voice was a little angry. Maud Noel, why are you so demeaning yourself? P4 Research Institute researchers are awesome, right? If it weren't for you, the virus wouldn't have been brought under control so quickly. Drugs wouldn't have been developed so quickly, and more people would have died. And it was you who guarded the lights of thousands of homes. Maud Noel, you can't just because your name isn't known doesn't mean you're not doing great. Maud Noel, you are in the industry of saving thousands of families from fire and water, and this night shines because of you. Maud Noel, you're better than anyone else in my heart. Ted Petty's words slammed into my heart, like 10 years ago, when he told me I didn't need to apologize. 10 years later, he told me that I had my own shining points, better than anyone else. How can I not love Ted Petty like this? Thank you. This time, Ted Petty didn't refuse my thanks again, but just led me towards the school building. I don't know where he got the key from, and opened the door to the music room. He sat in a chair with his guitar in his arms, staring at me with his affectionate peach blossom eyes. Maud Noel, welcome to my concert. This time he sang a song about love. As a Ted Petty fan, I know the singers Ted Petty likes. He has covered many of the songs of his idols. Only don't sing this song. because he said that the person he wanted to sing to her hadn't come to his concert yet. 10 years after re-meeting Ted Petty, I'm sure he likes me. It's just that we both tacitly didn't mention, like. I listened to the song quietly. The crush that was 10 years late has no regrets in this moment. I'm glad that the people I like also like me, but at the same time, I know that we will not be together, and we cannot be together. We walked side by side under the camphor tree. I always feel like I'm back to 10 years ago. I still remember when Ted Petty graduated. Even the scratch paper was divided up by the little fans. My scratch paper was nowhere to be found, but luckily no one had found the name hidden in the mathematical symbols. Maybe it was taken away by the cleaning ant. After all, no one like me would care about the scratch paper I used. Ted Petty has been a figure since high school, and an irreplaceable presence in my heart. Ted Petty turned his head to look at me, his gaze obsessive, his gaze striking through the cracks in the camphor tree. Maud Noel. I guess what he was going to say, and subconsciously ran away. Ted Petty. I just remembered that there was something else going on at the institute. I ran away. A voice rang out behind him. Maud Noel. I like you. I like it. I like it. I almost ran out of school and flagged down a taxi, driving aimlessly. After a long time, the driver stopped the car on the side of the road and handed me a pack of toilet paper, and I realized that I was crying. A young dream has come true. Everything is incredible. I subconsciously pinched my thigh, and it turned out to be real. When I got home, I was a little confused. The hands that lit the cigarette were shaking. It wasn't until I spit out the smoke rings that I woke up a little. I've never been a good girl. The doll in his arms was given to him by Ted Petty after graduating from high school. That interview suddenly came to mind. It really made me turn to the little note hidden in the cotton. The traces of time make the paper yellow. Only the words on it have not faded. Maud Noel. I like you. 6 words. 6 words 10 years late. I never dared to expect too much. What I hoped for always backfired. Ted Petty's favorite person has always been me. There was never anything Quintina. Words tend to be more intuitive and more direct to the brain than anything else. Maxine's phone call interrupted my emotions. Maud Noel. Something happened. Quintina broke the news that your high school colluded with teachers to receive scholarships and grants that didn't belong to you. And back. The latter word seemed a little disdainful, and Maxine took a deep breath. Breaking the news that you're being fostered. Maud Noel. I believe you. You're not that kind of person. Thank you. I clicked on Quintina's Weibo. Quintina's tweet recounts my high school events. All the things I had hidden had been dug up, including the fact that I often take time off, and also the fact that I can get a scholarship if I am absent from exams. Even more so that I often get out of the luxury car. I can guarantee that those things are reasonable and legal, and do not violate public order and good customs. Didn't expect that at such a cusp, Ted Petty would come forward and make things more and more out of control. In particular, Ted Petty was implicated in Quintina's operation. The hot searches continued, and those who clicked into the square were all scolding him. There are constantly rival teams who want to put Ted Petty to death. A message pops up on Facebook. Trust me, I've been protected by Ted Petty for too long, and I want to be his armor too. My past is very unbearable, and although I did not avoid mentioning it, it still takes courage to put all my unbearable things in front of the public. But we all have times when we want to do everything for one person. Ted Petty and I are both like that. I was interviewed by the media. Take out all my unbearable. I killed my parents. The old lady picked up garbage and dragged me to grow up. The old lady was seriously ill. I needed money, and became Ted Petty's tutor. The old latest thing is a scar in my heart that I have always been reluctant to mention. The media looked at me as weaker and more aggressive. Maud Noel. Do you like Ted Petty? You deliberately borrowed your grandmother's serious illness to get close to Ted Petty. Right. I didn't expect those things to get so unbearable in their mouths. There are always people who do something that is not for love. Love is never the whole of life. Women shouldn't have only the label of love. The words of explanation were interrupted by them. The questions are getting more and more tricky, as if they are trying to put me to death. My voice is still too small, and they only listen to what they want to hear. Until someone came against the light. Something is coming at me. Ted Petty stood next to me and whispered to me, "It's too messy. You're too clean. You shouldn't be here. Ted Petty. Is her crush Maud Noel? Ted Petty. Do you know? Maud Noel likes you and deliberately uses her grandmother's illness to get close to you. Ted Petty's face grew colder, and a few bruises appeared faintly on his neck. Ted Petty was angry. Do you know who you are asking? Maud Noel, a researcher at the P4 Institute, is a retrograde who rushed to the forefront in the face of disaster, fighting the most dangerous viruses day and night, all for the sake of you people. If it weren't for them, do you think you would still be able to question me like this without a mask? Will your family still be alive with you? The peace you hope for is something that they are silently guarding, and you should not ignore what they have given because they are unknown. Maud Noel's grandmother died at the hands of the virus. In order to prevent other families from being broken, she resolutely gave up her dream, devoted her life to virus research, and saved thousands of families from fire and water. The girl you speculated with the greatest malice, gave up her youth, gave up her ideals, and saved you again and again from fire and water. And this is how you repay her. Maud Noel is the girl I have had a crush on for many years. I have always admired and always tried to follow the girl I want to be with. I have always felt that I am not worthy of her, so I only dare to secretly have a crush on her. I don't dare let her know, because I'm afraid I won't even be able to be a friend in the end. That's the kind of person you labeled. Not everything is meant for love, for a certain man, and these great people should not be stigmatized for no reason because they are stupid. There was silence in the field. It wasn't until a long time that someone whispered, "I'm sorry." The voice grew louder and louder, and then only the word, "Thank you," remained in 1,000 words. I turned my head to look at Ted Petty. I always thought that I was not worthy of him, but now I know that he is afraid that he will not be worthy of me. It turns out that even the top Ted Petty will subconsciously feel inferior when he loves someone. Coming down from the press conference, Ted Petty stood in front of me nervously. Where was he, still half proud? Maud Noel. I interrupted him and spoke slowly. Ted Petty, I'm a hard-nosed person. I killed my parents when I was a child, and my grandmother died when I grew up. I never dared to expect too much, and I always felt that my existence was wrong. I don't dare to make friends. I don't dare to have too close relationships with others. But you is an exception. I struggle again and again. I want to let go again and again, but I can't give up again and again. Thank you, Ted Petty, for letting me know that I'm also very good, and let me know that there will be people chasing me, and I'm someone else's moon. But, Ted Petty, over the years, I've gotten used to being your seeker, to looking at your back, to paying attention to you secretly, and friends are far longer than lovers. Ted Petty, thank you for liking me. Thank you for letting me know that there are people in this world who care about me besides my grandmother. Ted Petty grabbed my hand and pulled me into his arms. The familiar smell of toast is as if we were young 10 years ago. Maud Noel, I know what you're afraid of, but Maud Noel, what's the point of me standing at the top without you? Everything I do is to be worthy of you, to be able to stand by your side. Maud Noel, you've suffered so much over the years. You just need to know that I'm here to love you. Maud Noel, give me a chance, and give yourself a chance. Let me chase you. Okay, don't turn me down. Ted Petty held my hand a little harder. I wanted to refuse him, but I couldn't. 16-year-old likes it, and at the age of 28, it has grown into a towering tree. Maybe I should give myself a chance. Ted Petty Extra. When I was 28 years old, I received a letter from Lin Cheng. I thought it was a letter from Maud Noel, but I was disappointed when I saw the envelope. I knew Maud Noel's words, not her, but I didn't give up and opened the envelope. Inside the envelope was a pile of scratch paper. I recognized Maud Noel's words at first glance. I also discovered the word, Ted Petty, hidden in the mathematical formula. It turns out that Maud Noel also likes me. At that moment, I didn't know how to describe my feelings. I feel that in the past 10 years, my timidity has made us miss it for too long. I was so scared that I wouldn't even be able to be a friend in the end. Now he tells me that Maud Noel likes me too. I couldn't help but laugh and tears flowed unconsciously. I don't know when I fell in love with Maud Noel. It was probably the first time she had spoken on stage as a student representative. Or maybe it's when the head teacher sends her to be my tablemate. She wasn't as tough as she looked. fragile and sensitive, and I wanted to protect her. It was also the first time I wanted to learn math well in order to chase someone. Maud Noel is a genius, but I'm so clumsy that I can only watch over the dim stars next to the moon. But the stars also want to be side by side with the moon. I wanted to be good enough to stand side by side with her, so I became a singer, and I wanted to stand at the top of the pyramid and meet Maud Noel at the top. I want to tell everyone that I love her. Maud Noel was an unattainable dream of my 16th year. It is also the person I wanted to spend the rest of my life making up for and protecting when I was 28 years old. Finally, at the age of 28, I had the courage to walk side by side with her. Maxine Extra. When I graduated, I picked up a pile of scratch paper. Dense scratch paper is filled with Ted Petty's name. The handwriting is exceptionally familiar. It is a handwriting that appears on the top of the excellent essay every week. It's Maud Noel's handwriting. Actually, I always knew that Maud Noel liked Ted Petty, but I didn't expect to like it that much. Ted Petty likes her, and I know it. As a bystander, I watched her decade of grogginess and muddle, watching them miss it again and again. It dawned on me that if no one told them that they loved each other, they would have been like this until the end of their lives. So, I sent the scratch paper to Ted Petty. The end.